The washing machine lid burned my palm when I lifted it, January cold seeping through the metal. 5:17 in the morning, frost coating the farmhouse windows in starburst patterns. Wind whistled through the barn slats across the yard, rattling loose tin like bones in a box. I pulled Diane's laundry from the hamper, sorting by habit. 42 years of marriage makes your hands move without thinking. Then I saw it. White fluid crusted on her underwear, stiff against the pale blue fabric. My fingers went still. She'd come home yesterday from that Grant County audit. 3 days away. We hadn't been intimate in 3 weeks. I'd been counting, though I didn't want to admit why. I carried the underwear to the bathroom, sealed it in a Ziploc bag with shaking hands. The plastic crinkled too loud in the silence. The calendar on the kitchen wall read January 8th, 2025. I picked up the phone and called Dr. Mendez's clinic, scheduled an urgent consultation, sat at the table while my coffee went cold, staring at that sealed bag. Diane's voice drifted from upstairs. "Honey, you up already?" I heard her footsteps on the stairs, slid the Ziploc into my coat pocket, forced my mouth into something like a smile as she walked into the kitchen. Dr. Mendez's exam room smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. The paper on the examination table crackled when I shifted my weight. Through the window, I could see snow piled against the clinic's brick wall, dirty gray, crusted with road salt. "Mr. Keller." Mendez pulled a file from his cabinet, the metal drawer scraping. "You mentioned concerns about a sample?" I handed him the Ziploc bag, watched his face stay professional while he logged it. "There's something else," I said. My voice sounded strange, like it belonged to someone older. "I need you to check my records. The vasectomy." His fingers paused on the keyboard. Then he typed, clicked, scrolled. The monitor's glow reflected in his reading glasses. "Here we are. January 10th, 2005. He turned the screen toward me. "The procedure was successful. Follow-up confirmed 0 sperm count. Mr. Keller, you've been sterile for 20 years. The words hit like a sledgehammer to the chest. 20 years. The fabric in that bag couldn't be mine. Couldn't possibly be mine. "That fluid," I said. My throat felt tight. "It's not—" "No," Mendez's voice was gentle. "It's not yours." The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the examination table. "These records," Mendez continued, "are often subpoenaed in paternity disputes, marital disputes. I can provide certified copies if you need them." I nodded. Couldn't trust my voice. "Do you need me to test the sample?" he asked. I nodded again. The wind rattled the window. Outside, a truck rumbled past, spraying slush. 2 days later, Diane unpacked her suitcase in our bedroom. I stood in the doorway, watching her fold blouses with practiced efficiency. She hummed something, hymn from last Sunday maybe? "How was Grant County?" I asked. "Productive." She didn't look up. "The Jorgensen farm needs serious soil amendments. Their pH levels are completely off. Spent most of Tuesday collecting samples from the North 40. I checked the GPS timestamps on her phone while she slept. Tuesday afternoon, her phone had pinged from a tower near the Holiday Inn, 30 miles from the Jorgensen place. "Sounds like hard work," I said. My boots are caked with mud. Red clay, you know how that South County soil is." She finally glanced at me, smiling. "But the pay's good. We need it with Dad's medical bills piling up." The lie sat between us like a live wire. She crossed the room, kissed my cheek. I caught the scent on her scarf, cologne. Not hers, not mine. Something expensive, sharp, the kind a younger man would wear. "Missed you, honey," she said. Through the bedroom window, I could see my barn. The brass fire bell sat on the workbench, tarnished, needing its annual polish. 40 years, I'd maintained that bell. 40 years of service, of duty, of showing up when the town needed me. My phone buzzed in my pocket, text from Mendez's office. "Lab results ready. Call to discuss." "I'm glad you're home," I told Diane. She squeezed my hand and returned to her unpacking. I walked downstairs, each step creaking under my weight. In my coat pocket, my fingers found the edge of an envelope. Estate paperwork. I'd seen it sticking out of her purse yesterday. She'd mentioned something about her father's lawyer needing signatures by April 15th. April 15th. 3 months away. I pulled out my phone, stared at Mendez's message. From upstairs, Diane called down. "Want me to make dinner? I picked up that roast you like." Her voice sounded so normal, so perfectly normal. I deleted Mendez's text without reading it. I already knew what it would say. Sunday morning, the church parking lot crunched under our tires. Rock salt and frozen gravel. First Lutheran's white steeple cut against a sky the color of old pewter. Diane adjusted her scarf, the same one that had smelled of cologne 3 days ago. She'd washed it. I'd watched her do it, humming in the laundry room like nothing had changed. Inside, the sanctuary smelled of wood polish and casserole dishes from the potluck setup. The organ wheezed through hymn number 237. "Trust and obey, for there's no other way." I watched Diane's lips moved with the words, her eyes forward, her face serene. During coffee hour, she carried her green bean casserole to the fellowship hall. I poured weak coffee from the industrial urn, the stream splashing into a paper cup. Across the room, Clara Hendricks whispered to Beth Morrison, both their gazes flicking toward Diane. Then Silas Grant walked in, 42 maybe, gym-built shoulders under a tailored jacket. He worked agricultural finance, helped farmers restructure loans, or so he claimed at the Rotary meetings. His office was in the county seat, 30 miles south, near that Holiday Inn. He crossed straight to Diane. His hand found the small of her back, fingers spreading, lingering 3 seconds too long. She didn't step away, didn't flinch, just smiled up at him while he said something that made her laugh. The paper cup crumpled in my hand. Coffee sloshed over my knuckles, hot enough to sting. Clara's whisper carried, "Seen them at the diner last month." Silas pulled a manila envelope from his jacket, handed it to Diane across the potluck table, right there in front of Pastor Emil and half the congregation. She tucked it into her purse quickly, but not quickly enough. Her cheeks flushed. My feet moved without permission. I was halfway across the hall when Pastor Emil intercepted me. "Warren," his hand on my shoulder firm. "Good to see you. Been meaning to ask about the fire station dedication next month." And I watched over his shoulder as Silas leaned close to Diane's ear, watched her nod, watched him squeeze her elbow before heading for the exit. "The dedication," Emil repeated. "You'll ring the opening bell? 40 years of service deserves recognition." "Yeah," I said. My voice sounded far away. "I'll ring it." That evening, Diane announced she needed groceries. The car's engine faded down the driveway, red taillights swallowed by early dark. I stood in our bedroom, her coat draped over my arm. The fabric still held her rosewater perfume. My hands moved to the pockets, years of doing laundry, checking for tissues before the wash. This time I was checking for something else. The Holiday Inn receipt was folded small, tucked deep in the left pocket, Grant County. January 7th through 9th. Room 214, my chest went tight. The manila envelope sat in her purse on the kitchen counter. I pulled it out with hands that had stopped shaking, past shaking now into something colder. Inside, estate transfer documents, her father's farm. 600 acres that Dutch and Nora had worked for 50 years. I flipped through the pages. Legal language. Dense and deliberate. Page 7 made me stop. Transfer of property to Midwest Land Development, LLC. Estimated value, $4.8 million. My fingers found the company registration addendum stapled to the back. Midwest Land Development, LLC. Majority stakeholder, Silas Grant, 60%. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, wind scraped bare branches against the window. This wasn't just an affair, this was a land grab. And the final page required my signature. Spousal consent, irrevocable upon execution. No cooling off period. I heard Diane's car in the driveway, earlier than expected. I photographed every page with my phone, hands steady now, methodical. Returned the envelope to her purse exactly as I'd found it. She came through the door, carrying 2 bags. "Forgot my wallet," she said, laughing. "Had to come back." Only made it to the end of the driveway before I realized. Her purse sat on the counter between us. "Find everything you needed?" I asked. "What?" She blinked. "At the store, earlier. You said you needed groceries." "Oh." She set the bags down. "Yes, just needed a few things for tomorrow night. Silas and his wife are having people over, business dinner." He asked if I could help with the hosting. His regular caterer fell through. She pulled milk from the bag. $50 for 4 hours. Not bad. The lie came so easily, so smoothly. "Silas Grant," I said. From church, you know him." She opened the refrigerator, the light spilling yellow across the linoleum. "He's been very helpful with Dad's estate planning, pro bono even, pro bono, while planning to buy the land for a fraction of its worth." "That's generous of him," I said. She smiled, kissed my cheek on her way past. "I knew you'd understand. I'll be back by 10. After she left, really left this time, I sat at the kitchen table, opened with my phone, scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Boone Tucker, Korean War, Firebase Echo, 1952. I'd saved him from a barn fire in 78 when a hay bale sparked. He'd been after me to go fishing ever since. Said he owed me. I pressed call. Time to collect. Boone arrived on a Tuesday morning, the 3rd of February. His truck rattled up the driveway, exhaust smoke white against the gray sky. He carried a thermos under one arm, always did. Black coffee, no sugar, strong enough to strip paint. "Warren?" He shook my hand, his grip still firm at 72. Snow crunched under our boots as we walked to the barn. Sounded urgent on the phone. Inside, I'd spread everything across my workbench. The Holiday Inn receipt, printed photos of the estate documents, bank statements I'd found in Diane's desk drawer, withdrawals, regular, always on audit trip days. Boone unscrewed his thermos cap. Steam rose, carrying the bitter smell of coffee. He pulled reading glasses from his shirt pocket, then a magnifying glass from his coat. Old accountant habits. "Talk me through it," he said. I did. Kept my voice level, gave him facts. The vasectomy, the stained underwear, Diane's lies about where she'd been, Silas Grant's company buying the farm for pennies on the dollar. Boone studied the estate documents. The magnifying glass moved slowly across the fine print. His finger stopped on page 7. "Spousal consent irrevocable upon signature," he read aloud. "No cooling off period." He tapped the clause. "That's predatory language, not standard." "What does it mean?" "Means once you sign, you can't change your mind, not even if you discover fraud." He flipped to the purchase agreement. $4.8 million for 600 acres of prime farmland. He whistled low. "That land's worth 12, maybe 15 million to developers. This whole deal stinks." The wind rattled the barn door. Through the gap, I could see the farmhouse. Diane's car in the driveway. She was inside, grading papers for the spring semester, agricultural science, teaching kids about soil composition while selling her father's soil to thieves. "There's more, I said. "I need to know if this is the first time." Boone looked at me over his glasses. "I need to know if Silas Grant makes a habit of this. Sleeping with clients' wives. Buying land cheap. That'll take some digging." Boone sipped his coffee. "County recorder's office keeps loan files. Public record. If Grant's been working this territory long, there'll be patterns." He paused. "But, Warren, you sure you want to go down this road? Once you start turning stones, you can't put them back." Through the workbench window, I could see the brass fire bell, tarnished, waiting for its annual polish. "I've been ringing that bell for 40 years, I said. "Every time someone needed help, every emergency, every fire, every lost kid in the woods, I showed up." "I know you did. I'm not letting him steal what Dutch and Nora built. I don't care what it costs me." Boone nodded slowly, set down his thermos. "All right then, give me a week." 2 weeks later, Diane slid a stack of papers across the dinner table. Outside, February wind howled around the eaves. Freezing rain ticked against the windows. "Dad's lawyer needs these signed," she said. Her voice was light, casual. "Just routine estate paperwork, transferring assets into the trust." I cut into my pork chop, chewed slowly. The meat was dry. She'd overcooked it, distracted by something, or someone. "Big decision," I said. "Think I should have Boone look it over. He did accounting for 40 years. Her fork paused. "It's really just a formality." 600 acres isn't a formality. "Warren." She set down her fork. "Dad's sick. The medical bills are crushing them. This trust protects the assets, makes sure everything's handled properly when the time comes." "What's the rush?" "There's no rush. It's just, the lawyer said—" She stopped, breathed. "Why are you making this difficult?" I met her eyes. 42 years of marriage, and I'd never been good at reading her. Always took her at her word, trusted the surface. "I'll read through it carefully," I said. "Talk to Boone, then I'll sign." Her jaw tightened. "Fine." She stood, carried her plate to the sink, ran the water hard. The pipes groaned. "I'm going to bed early," she said without turning around. "I have a headache." I listened to her climb the stairs. Heard the bedroom door close. Not slam, she wasn't the slamming type. Just a firm click that said everything. My phone buzzed. Text from Boone. "County records pulled. You need to see this. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. I typed back. "I'll be there." That night, I lay on the couch in the living room. Told Diane I didn't want to disturb her with my tossing and turning. She didn't argue. Around midnight, I heard her on the phone. The bedroom door was closed, but the old farmhouse carried sound through the heating vents. "Won't sign." Her voice, low and urgent. "I'm trying, but he's being stubborn." Silence. Then, I know the deadline. April 15th. I understand." More silence. "Can't you just—" She stopped. No, I know we can't do that." The furnace kicked on, drowning out her words. When it cycled off, I heard, "Loves me. He'll come around. He always does." The phone clicked off. Her footsteps crossed to the window. I imagined her standing there, looking out at the dark fields, the barn, the life we'd built, or the life I thought we'd built. The couch springs creaked when I shifted. Outside, an owl called from the oak tree. The wind carried its voice away into the February dark. I pulled the Afghan up to my chin. It smelled like mothballs and the lavender sachets Diane made every spring. My eyes stayed open, watching shadows move across the ceiling. April 15th, less than 10 weeks away. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep. Failed. The call came at 6 in the morning, March 5th. Nora's voice on the line shaking. "Warren, it's Dutch. He's had a stroke. Diane and I made the drive to Regional Medical in silence. Dawn broke gray over frozen fields. The heater in my truck rattled, pushing warm air that smelled like old antifreeze. Diane's hands twisted in her lap. "He was fine yesterday," she said. "We talked on the phone. He sounded fine." At the hospital, antiseptic smell hit us at the entrance. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Nora sat in the ICU waiting room, her face carved hollow. She stood when she saw us, and Diane wrapped her in an embrace. "Stable," Nora said. "That's what they keep saying. Stable, but serious." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Doctor says no stress. He needs absolute rest." A nurse led us back. Dutch lay in the bed, smaller than I'd ever seen him. 82 years old, but he'd always seemed bigger, hands that could wrestle a plow, voice that carried across 40 acres. Now tubes ran from his arms, monitors beeped. His mouth drooped on the left side. I stepped close. "Dutch, it's Warren." His eyes found mine. One hand lifted an inch off the blanket. Behind me, Diane whispered with the doctor. I caught fragments. "Recovery time? Rehabilitation? Advanced directives?" Dutch's fingers twitched. His mouth worked, trying to form words. Only a rasp came out. "Don't strain yourself," I said. "You rest now." His good hand gripped mine, squeezed. Then his eyes cut past me to Diane, and something flickered across his face. Not quite recognition. Something else, warning maybe. 2 hours later, we sat in a conference room with Mr. Garvey, the estate lawyer. He was younger than expected, 40 maybe, with a tablet instead of paper files. His cologne was subtle, expensive, the kind that came from the city. "Given Mr. Erickson's condition," Garvey said, "we need to expedite the estate transfer. The trust documents require completion by April 15th, or the entire estate reverts to state probate." And he tapped his tablet. "That process could take 3 to 5 years. Cost upward of $200,000 in fees and taxes." Diane leaned forward. "What do we need to do?" "Mrs. Keller has already signed as primary heir." Garvey slid a document across the table toward me. "We need spousal consent. Mr. Keller's signature on page 12. I didn't pick up the pen he offered." "What happens to the land?" "It transfers into the Erickson Family Trust. Mrs. Keller serves as trustee. The trust provides for Mr. and Mrs. Erickson's medical care, then distributes remaining assets per their wishes upon—" He paused, delicately. "Upon death of both parties. And the trust can sell the land. Yes. If the trustee deems it necessary for the beneficiary's welfare." "To whom?" Garvey's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Any qualified buyer. The trust's fiduciary responsibility is to maximize value for the beneficiaries." Diane's hand found my arm. "Warren, Dad needs this. The medical bills?" "I'd like time to review." I pushed the document back. "Have my accountant look it over." Garvey's jaw tightened. "Mr. Keller, time is the one commodity we don't have. April 15th is 5 weeks away. After that date, your father-in-law's legacy enters legal limbo. His life savings consumed by probate." "I understand. Do you?" He leaned back. "Because from where I sit, your hesitation suggests you don't grasp the severity of the situation." The conference room's fluorescent lights buzzed. Outside the window, I could see the hospital parking lot. Ice melting in patches, March thaw beginning. "I'll read it carefully," I said. "That's not hesitation. That's diligence." Diane's hand left my arm. We stopped for coffee on the drive home. A truck stop off Route 17, diesel fumes and burnt coffee grounds. Diane didn't want anything, sat in the passenger seat, arms crossed, staring through the windshield. I brought my cup back to the truck, slid behind the wheel. The engine ticked as it cooled. "You're going to let them lose everything," she said. "I'm going to make sure we're not signing away their legacy to con artists." She turned then, eyes sharp. "Con artists? What are you talking about?" "Midwest Land Development, Silas Grant's company." Her face went carefully blank. "Silas is helping us. He's been helping us for months." "Helping you? What's that supposed to mean?" I sipped my coffee. It was terrible, watery, bitter. "It means I know where you were during those audit trips. I know about the Holiday Inn. I know about room 214. The color drained from her face. "And I know," I continued, keeping my voice level, "that Silas's company is buying 600 acres of prime farmland for $4.8 million when it's worth 3 times that." She opened her mouth, closed it. Her hands twisted in her lap, the same motion she'd made during the drive to the hospital. "Warren." In the hospital hallway, Diane pulled me aside before we left. Rain had started, tapping the windows in slow rhythm. "Dad wanted this," she said, "before the stroke. He talked about selling, about not burdening us with the farm. He knows I don't want to work it. Neither does Emma." "Did he know he was selling to his daughter's lover?" She flinched. "It's not—" We're not... Don't. My voice came out harder than I'd intended. Don't lie to me anymore. I've had the fluid tested. I've seen the motel receipts. I've read the company filings. I know everything, Diane. Her eyes filled. It's complicated. No, it's simple. You chose him over me. Over your parents' legacy. Over 42 years. That's not fair. Tears tracked down her cheeks. You don't understand. Silas said the farm was more burden than blessing. He said whatever he needed to say to get what he wanted. We stood in the empty hallway. Somewhere, a PA system called for a doctor. An elevator dinged. The world kept moving while ours fell apart. I want you to refuse, she said quietly. I want you to sign those papers and stop punishing me for one mistake. One mistake. And I let the words hang there. How many times, Diane? How many audit trips? How many rooms? She didn't answer. I thought so. I turned toward the exit. Warren, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. Dad's dying. Maybe not today, maybe not this week, but the doctors say... Her voice broke. They say he won't recover fully, won't go home. This is his last wish, to see the land settled, to know Mom's taken care of. She moved closer. I heard her footsteps, smelled her rosewater perfume. Please, for Dutch, just sign. I turned then, looked at her, really looked. 64 years old. Lines around her eyes I'd watched form, year by year. Gray in her hair she'd stopped coloring last fall. This woman I'd loved since she was 22. If I sign, I said, you lose me. You understand that? The moment my name goes on that paper, we're done. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more. We stood 2 feet apart in that hospital corridor. Might as well have been 2 miles, 2 states, 2 different lives. Nora appeared from the ICU, her face drawn. She walked toward us slowly, like every step hurt. They're moving him to a room, she said. He's asking for you, Warren. Diane reached for my hand. I let her take it. Felt the cool metal of her wedding ring against my palm. Please, she whispered. In the ICU, Dutch lay with his eyes half open. The monitors had settled into steady rhythms. Nora took his good hand, squeezed gently. Warren's here, she said. Dutch's eyes found mine. His mouth worked, struggling. Easy, I said. Ben, don't strain. His hand lifted from the blanket, beckoned me closer. I leaned down. His breath was shallow, quick. His lips moved near my ear. Don't. The word came out slurred but clear enough. Don't what, Dutch? His eyes cut to Diane. Back to me. Then he said the word again, more forcefully despite the stroke's damage. Don't. Nora's hand flew to her mouth. Diane stood frozen in the doorway. Dutch's fingers gripped my wrist with surprising strength. He tried again. Don't sign. The monitors beeped. The IV dripped. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. A nurse, maybe, sharing a joke at the station. Diane's face had gone white. Dad, you don't know what you're saying. The medication... But Dutch's eyes were clear, clearer than they'd been all day. He knew exactly what he was saying. 3 days later, I drove to the hospital alone. Evening visiting hours. The corridors quiet, except for the squeak of nurses' shoes on linoleum. Dutch had been moved to a recovery room, pale green walls, a window overlooking the parking lot. I brought his favorite tobacco blend. Not that he could smoke it, hospital rules and the stroke besides, but I figured he might like to smell it. Remember his workshop? The cherry wood projects he used to turn on his lathe. Warren. His voice came stronger than before, though still slurred on the left side. You came. Of course I came. I pulled a chair close to the bed, unscrewed the tin's lid. The rich smell of tobacco filled the space between us. His good eye closed, breathed deep. That's good. We sat in silence. Outside, March rain started, soft patter against the window. The parking lot lights flickered on, orange sodium glow. Nora told me, Dutch said eventually, about Diane, about Silas Grant. I didn't know what to say to that. Should have seen it. He shifted, wincing. Man comes around, offers help with the estate. Too eager, too friendly. His hand lifted, gestured weakly. But my girl, she swore he was legitimate, professional. She believed him, I said. Maybe she still does. Or maybe she wanted to believe. Dutch's eye opened, fixed on me. Question is, what do you believe? I thought about that. The tobacco smell, the rain, the steady beep of monitors. I believe you built something worth protecting, I said. 600 acres of good land, 50 years of work. That's not mine to sign away. His fingers found mine, squeezed. The documents, I continued, the ones Garvey brought. I noticed something. Dutch, did you sign those papers before your stroke? His face went still. Because the date on your signature says March 3rd, but Nora said you had the stroke on March 5th. before any lawyer visited. Dutch's breathing quickened. The monitor beeped faster. That signature's dated wrong, I said quietly. Either it's a clerical error or it's fraud. His voice came out harsh, clear. Check the estate documents on the tray there. I found them. Hospital administration had left a copy for Nora. I flipped to the signature page. Dutch's name, in shaky script, dated March 3rd, 2025. You didn't sign this, did you? He shook his head. Once, definitive. Diane did? Don't know, but someone... He coughed, and I helped him sip water through a straw. Someone wants that farm, bad enough to forge. The rain picked up, wind threw it against the window in sheets. I won't sign, I said. Not until we figure this out. Good man. His eye drifted closed. Always were, always kept your word. That bell, 40 years. Get some rest, Dutch. Warren, his voice dropping to a whisper. Protect what matters, even if it costs you everything else. I sat with him until he slept. The tobacco tin between my palms, warming in my hands. Through the window I could see car headlights cutting through the rain. People leaving, people arriving, the world continuing its rotation. When I stood to go, I pocketed the estate documents. Nora wouldn't miss them. She had her own copy at home. In the hallway, I nearly collided with Diane. What are you doing here? She asked. Her coat dripped rain. Her hair was plastered to her forehead. Visiting Dutch. Alone? Without telling me? He's my father-in-law. I don't need permission. And her eyes went to the papers in my hand. What are those? Estate documents. The ones with Dutch's signature. Those belong to Mom. These belong to Dutch. And I'm going to have someone verify this signature. I met her gaze. Because the date's wrong. Her face went carefully neutral. What are you talking about? The date's March 3rd, but Dutch had his stroke on March 5th, before any lawyer came. I stepped closer. So either someone made a clerical error, or someone forged his name. Which do you think it's his? You're being paranoid. Am I? I held up the document. Did you watch Dutch sign this, Diane? Were you there when he put pen to paper? She didn't answer. That's what I thought. I moved past her toward the elevator. Her hand caught my arm. Warren, please. Can't we talk about this at home? Like adults? We stopped talking like adults the first time you climbed into Silas Grant's bed. I pulled free, pressed the elevator call button. Behind me, Diane's voice came small. I'm sorry. The elevator dinged. Doors slid open. Sorry doesn't fix forgery, I said. Sorry doesn't give Dutch back his signature, his choice. I stepped inside, turned, watched her standing in the corridor, coat dripping, face crumpling. The doors closed between us. Next morning, I called Boone. Met him at the diner on Route 17. The one with the good pie and coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Sleet tapped against the windows. Mid-March, and winter wasn't done with us yet. I slid the estate documents across the table. Need you to look at something. Boone pulled out his reading glasses, studied the signature page while his coffee steamed. The diner smelled like bacon grease and maple syrup. At the counter, truckers laughed about something, their voices carrying over the jukebox playing Merle Haggard. This date bothers you, Boone said. It wasn't a question. Dutch had his stroke on the 5th. This is dated the 3rd. Could be he signed it before. Could be lawyer brought papers earlier in the week. Could be. I sipped my coffee. But Nora says the lawyer never came until after the stroke. Says Garvey showed up at the hospital with papers already prepared. Boone's finger traced the signature. You want me to get this analyzed? I want to know if it's real. He folded the document carefully, slid it into his jacket pocket. I know a guy, retired FBI, does forensic document analysis, lives up in Brainerd, owes me a favor. How long? Week, maybe less? Boone leaned back. But Warren, you realize what you're saying here. If this signature's forged, and if Diane was involved, then it's fraud, conspiracy, whole thing's rotten. And your marriage is over. I looked out the window, sleet turning to snow. March in Minnesota. You never knew what you'd get. My marriage was over the moment she chose him, I said. I'm just making it official. Sunday morning, March 19th. The church was packed. Spring approaching meant Easter preparations, committees meeting, potlucks planned. I sat in my usual pew, third from the back. Diane sat up front with the choir. We hadn't shared a bed in 2 weeks. Hadn't shared much of anything except cold silence and the weight of what was coming. Pastor Emile climbed the pulpit, cleared his throat. The organ fell silent. Today's sermon, he began, comes from Ephesians. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you. I felt eyes on me. Turned slightly. Clara Hendricks watched from across the aisle, her expression pointed. Emil's voice filled the sanctuary. We live in a time of division, families torn apart by pride, by stubbornness, by the refusal to extend grace when grace is most needed. He paused, let the words settle. The Bible tells us that love keeps no record of wrongs, that forgiveness is not optional, it's commanded. He was talking to me, everyone knew it. The whispers had spread, Warren Keller refusing to help his dying father-in-law, Warren being difficult about simple paperwork, Warren letting pride destroy his family. When we withhold forgiveness, Emil continued, we don't punish others, we punish ourselves. We become prisoners of our own bitterness. The furnace kicked on. Warm air pushed the smell of hymnals and furniture polish through the nave. And sometimes, Emil said, looking directly at me now, forgiveness means letting go, means signing our name and trusting God with the outcome. My jaw clenched. I stood. Didn't plan to, but my legs moved anyway. The pew creaked. People turned. Excuse me, I said quietly. Walked up the aisle, past the stained glass, past the offering plates, past Diane's white face in the choir loft. Pushed through the double doors into the vestibule. Outside, the March air bit cold. Snow lingered in patches under the eaves. My truck sat alone in the far corner of the parking lot. I made it halfway there before Clara caught up. Warren Keller, her voice sharp as January wind. You should be ashamed of yourself. I kept walking. Diane says you're refusing to help Dutch, that you're letting him lose everything because of your pride. I stopped, turned. Clara stood bundled in her church coat, breath steaming. Is that what Diane says? That poor girl. She's been crying to everyone, says you've turned cold, cruel even. Clara's chin lifted. Never thought I'd see the day when Warren Keller put himself before family. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Whole town's talking about it. How you're making that sick man beg for your signature. How you're punishing Diane for what? For working hard? For trying to help her parents? The wind picked up, rattled bare branches overhead. Clara, I appreciate your concern, but this is family business. Family business, she laughed, bitter. When your stubbornness affects the whole community, it stops being private. Dutch and Nora are good people. They don't deserve this. I climbed into my truck, turned the key, the engine coughed, caught. Clara stood in my rearview mirror as I pulled away, her mouth still moving. That evening, someone knocked on my door. I'd been in the barn, cleaning tools, trying to keep my hands busy. The brass fire bell sat on the workbench, finally polished, 40 years of tarnish buffed away. It gleamed under the fluorescent shop light. Through the barn window, I saw a car I didn't recognize. Small sedan, practical. The kind of woman living on a budget might drive. I walked to the house, opened the door. Tessa Grant stood on my porch. Mr. Keller? Her voice was soft, nervous. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm Tessa, Silas's... She stopped. Silas's wife, soon-to-be ex-wife. I stepped back. Come in. She entered carefully, like the house might bite. Her coat was thin for March, threadbare at the cuffs. She clutched a purse to her chest. Coffee? I asked. No, thank you. I can't stay long. He doesn't know I'm here. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Diane had slid those estate documents toward me 3 weeks ago. I know what Silas is doing, Tessa said. Darn. To you? To your wife? To her parent? What? She opened her purse with shaking hands. I've been gathering evidence for my divorce, but I think you need to see this more than my lawyer does. She pulled out a flash drive, set it on the table between us. There are photos, text messages between Silas and your wife, going back 8 months. She swallowed. I'm sorry. I know that must be hard to hear. I already know about the affair. It's not just the affair. She leaned forward. There are also loan documents, files Silas kept on his computer. Mr. Keller, my husband, has been running a scheme for 3 years. He targets farming families, offers to help restructure their loans. Then he buries balloon payment clauses in the fine print. When they can't pay, he forecloses, buys the land cheap through shell companies, flips it to developers. And my hands went cold. 12 families so far, Tessa continued. The Jorgensens, the Haugens, the Petersons, remember them? Lost their dairy farm 2 years ago? Her eyes filled. Silas destroyed them, all of them. Why are you telling me this? Because he's doing it to your family now. And because... She stopped, wiped her eyes. Because I'm tired of being married to a monster. Tired of pretending I don't see what he does. She pushed the flash drive across the table. Everything's on here. Bank records, loan contracts, even recordings. He doesn't know I put a recorder in his office. She stood. Use it. Stop him. I don't care what happens to me anymore. I just want him stopped. Wait. I stood too. If I use this, he'll know you gave it to me. He'll come after you. He's already coming after me. The divorce is ugly. He's threatened to leave me with nothing. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. At least this way the truth gets out. There's something else, I said. In those files, does Silas mention using your wife's credentials? Her consultant license? Tessa frowned. Her credentials? For what? To access farmers' financial records, their soil reports, tax information, things a consultant would have legal access to. Her face went pale. There are texts. Between Silas and someone, I assumed a business partner, but they mention using the consultant to gain access to client files. She grabbed my arm. You're saying he used Diane? Without her knowing? I'm saying maybe Diane's not the villain here. Maybe she's another victim. Tessa's grip tightened. Keller, if that's true, if Silas used her credentials for fraud, she could face criminal charges. Identity theft, conspiracy. Even if she didn't know, prosecutors might not care. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, full dark had fallen. Through the window I could see lights on in the barn, the polished brass bell catching fluorescence. Thank you, I said, for bringing this. There's one more thing. Tessa pulled an envelope from her purse. Bank statements, from an account in the Cayman Islands. Silas doesn't know I found them. She set it beside the flash drive. $3.2 million, money from land sales, hidden offshore. She walked to the door, paused, with her hand on the knob. He told me once that your wife was just a means to an end, she said quietly. That the real prize was the farm, that Diane was, his words, lonely and gullible enough to hand it over. The door closed behind her. Her sedan's taillights disappeared down the driveway. I sat alone in the kitchen, the flash drive and envelope on the table. Evidence of everything. Proof of fraud, infidelity, conspiracy, proof that Diane had been used, manipulated. Maybe even loved me still, under all the lies. Or maybe I was making excuses for her. Maybe she knew exactly what she was doing. My phone buzzed. Text from Boone. Got the handwriting analysis. Dutch's signature is forged. 97% certainty. Call me. I picked up the flash drive. Felt its weight in my palm. Outside, the wind picked up. Not quite winter anymore. Not quite spring. April 1st. Night settled heavy over the farm, the kind of dark that pressed against windows. I sat in the barn, work light casting long shadows across the floor. The brass fire bell sat on the workbench beside me, polished until it gleamed. Tessa's flash drive was plugged into my laptop. I'd been scrolling through files for 2 hours. Bank records, text messages, loan contracts with balloon payment clauses, buried on page 17, page 23, page 9. Each one a trap sprung on desperate farmers. The Jorgensens lost their place in February 2 years ago. 80-year-old dairy farm, gone. The loan documents showed interest rates that tripled after 12 months. Fine print, Silas had assured them, was standard agricultural financing. The Haugens, the Petersons, the Schmidts, names I knew, families I'd helped when barns caught fire, when tractors rolled, when kids went missing in cornfields, all of them destroyed by the man my wife was sleeping with. I clicked to the text messages folder, started reading. Silas, the Keller farm is the big one. 600 acres, creek frontage, worth $15M to developers. Unknown. Can you get the wife on board? Silas, already working on it. She's lonely. Husband's old, boring. Easy target. The date stamp read June 12th, 2024, 8 months ago. I kept scrolling. Silas, Diane's asking questions about the trust structure. Unknown. Shut it down. You need her signature, not her brain. Silas, she's emotional. Thinks I love her. I can work with that. My chest felt hollow. Empty. More messages. These between Silas and Diane. Diane, can't stop thinking about yesterday. Silas, me neither. You're incredible. Diane, Warren barely notices me anymore. I feel invisible. Silas, he doesn't deserve you. When the estate settles, we can be together. Really together. Diane, you promise? Silas, I promise. Trust me. I closed the laptop, sat in silence. The barn's tin roof creaked in the wind. Outside, the first robin of spring had arrived yesterday. I'd heard it singing at dawn, signs of thaw, of renewal. But in here, in this barn, where I'd spent 40 years maintaining equipment and polishing that bell for emergencies, everything felt frozen. Dutch's words echoed, protect what matters, even if it costs you everything else. If I exposed Silas, the whole truth would come out. Diane's affair, spread across town. Her parents would know their daughter had betrayed them. had nearly sold their legacy for a con man's false promises. Nora would lose her daughter and husband in the same breath. If I stayed silent, signed those papers, Dutch and Nora would lose everything anyway. The farm would be gone, Silas would win. And 12 more families would follow, because men like him didn't stop until someone stopped them. No clean choice. No good path. I thought about Pastor Emil's sermon, about forgiveness, about grace. But grace without truth wasn't grace. It was cowardice dressed in religious language. I picked up my phone, stared at it. My thumb hovered over Nora's contact. I could call her now, tell her everything. Let her decide. Instead, I opened my messages, scrolled to Fire Chief McGrath, typed, "Still planning the dedication for April 22nd? His response came quick. "Absolutely. You ready to ring that bell one more time? I'm ready. Can you invite the town council? Want to make it official? Consider it done. They'll be honored to attend." I set the phone down, looked at the brass bell. 40 years of emergencies. 40 years of showing up when people needed help. This was the biggest emergency of my life. Time to ring the bell one last time. April 5th. Morning broke cold but clear. I drove to Boone's house, the envelope from his forensic analyst on the seat beside me. Boone met me at the door with his thermos. We walked to his workshop out back. He'd converted the old garage into an office when he retired. File cabinets lined the walls. A desk buried under paperwork. The smell of coffee and old wood. "Handwriting analysis is definitive," Boone said, spreading the report across his desk. Dutch's signature on those estate documents was forged. Experts 97% certain. The pressure points are wrong. The letter formation is inconsistent with Dutch's other signatures. He pulled out another document. I also ran the dates. Garvey, the estate lawyer, didn't visit Dutch until March 7th, 2 days after the stroke. But the documents are dated March 3rd. Someone signed for Dutch before he even had the stroke. That's fraud, forgery, probably identity theft too. Boone leaned back in his chair. Question is, who did it? Diane had access to the papers. Silas had motive. I pulled out Tess's flash drive, and I have proof of his whole operation. Boone plugged in the drive. We spent the next hour going through everything, the loan schemes, the hidden bank accounts, the text messages between Silas and his accomplice. When we got to the messages about using the consultant to access farmer financial records, Boone whistled low. He used Diane's credentials without her knowledge, he said. That makes her an unwitting accomplice. Legally speaking, she could still face charges. Even if she didn't know? Prosecutors don't always care about intent. They care about results. He ejected the flash drive. But here's the thing, Warren. If you go public with this, and I think you should, Diane's name will be dragged through it. The whole town will know. Her parents will know. She could lose her teaching license. Might even face criminal prosecution. And if I don't, Silas wins. Dutch and Nora lose the farm. More families get destroyed. Boone met my eyes. And you lose whatever's left of your self-respect. I stood, walked to the window. Outside, Boone's yard was greening up, crocuses pushing through last week's snow. Spring coming, whether we were ready or not. The fire station dedication lot, I said. April 22nd. That's when I'll do it. Public venue, smart. Town council will be there, you said. McGrath's inviting them. Probably the sheriff, too. I turned back. I need you there, Boone. Need you to present the loan fraud evidence, the banking records. Make it official. You know, what about the forgery, the estate documents? I picked up the forensic report. I'll handle that part myself. Boone stood, extended his hand. 40 years we've known each other. 40 years, and I've never seen you back down from doing what's right. I shook his hand. This doesn't feel right. It feels like burning everything down. And sometimes, Boone said, that's what truth requires. Everything burns so something real can grow. I drove home through April morning light. The fields were awakening. Green shoots visible in the black soil. The world turning toward life despite everything dying inside it. April 22nd arrived with the kind of spring morning that felt like a promise. Blue sky, warm sun, birds loud in the trees around the fire station. The dedication ceremony was set for 2 in the afternoon. By 1:30, cars filled the parking lot. Town council members, volunteer firefighters, past and present, families with children running across the grass. Pastor Emil arrived with half the church congregation. I watched from inside the station as Clara Hendricks helped set up folding chairs. As Diane parked near the back, her face pale, uncertain why I'd asked her to come. Silas pulled up in his Mercedes, confident, smiling. He didn't know yet, couldn't know. McGrath found me in the equipment bay, where I stood beside the old pumper truck we'd restored last summer. Hell of a turnout, Warren, he said, clapping my shoulder. Town council's here, Sheriff Kowalski too. Even got a reporter from the county paper. He grinned. 40 years of service deserves a crowd. Is the sound system working? Tested it this morning. Microphone, speakers, all set. He paused. You seem nervous. It's just a speech. Ring the bell, say a few words, we eat cake. Something like that. Boone appeared in the doorway, carrying his leather briefcase. He nodded once, ready. At 2 o'clock sharp, McGrath called everyone to attention. The crowd settled into chairs, onto picnic blankets, standing in clusters at the edges. 70, maybe 80 people, the whole town or close enough. We're here today, McGrath announced, to honor a man who's answered every emergency call for 40 years. Warren Keller has served this community as volunteer fire chief, as neighbor, as friend. Warren, come on up. Applause. Scattered cheers. I walked to the front, where the brass fire bell hung from its new mounting post. It gleamed in the afternoon sun, every inch of tarnish gone. I gripped the pull rope, paused. 40 years ago, I said, I rang this bell for the first time. House fire on County Road 12, the Hannigan place. We saved the family but lost the barn. My voice carried across the crowd. Since then, I've rung it for floods, for accidents, for lost children. Every time this community showed up. That's what we do. We show up for each other. Heads nodded. Diane sat in the third row, hands folded in her lap. But sometimes, I continued, emergencies don't announce themselves with smoke and flame. Sometimes they're quieter, more insidious. Sometimes the threat comes from people we trust. The crowd shifted. Uncertain, I pulled the rope. The bell rang out, deep, clear, resonant. The sound rolled across the parking lot, into the trees, toward town. I'm ringing this bell now, I said, because our community faces an emergency. And it's time we all knew the truth. Silas straightened in his seat. His smile faltered. Boone Tucker, I said, would you come up here? Boone walked to the front, briefcase in hand. He set up a portable easel, unfolded a poster board. Across the top, in bold letters, agricultural loan fraud, 12 families defrauded. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Over the past 3 years, Boone said, his accountant's voice steady and clear, Silas Grant of Grant Agricultural Finance has systematically defrauded farming families in this county. He offers loan restructuring at favorable rates, then buries balloon payment clauses in the contracts. When families can't pay, and the terms ensure they can't, he forecloses, buys the land through shell companies, sells to developers at triple the price. He pointed to names on the chart: the Jorgensens, the Haugans, the Petersons, the Schmidts, the Olsons, all lost their farms to Mr. Grant's scheme. People turned to look at Silas. He stood, face red. This is slander. I'm calling my lawyer. Sit down, Mr. Grant, Sheriff Kowalski said from the front row. Let them finish. Silas sat. His jaw worked. Boone continued. Financial records show Mr. Grant has profited $3.2 million from these fraudulent sales. The money is hidden in offshore accounts. I have bank statements, loan contracts, and recordings proving systematic fraud. And he pulled documents from his briefcase, held them up. These are certified copies. The County Banking Board received this evidence on April 20th. Their investigation is ongoing. Gasps. Whispers. I watched Diane's face drain of color. There's more, I said, stepping forward again. Mr. Grant targeted my family specifically. My wife's parents, Dutch and Nora Erickson, own 600 acres. Worth $15 million to developers. Mr. Grant saw an opportunity. I pulled out my phone. Projected text messages onto a screen Boone had set up. Silas, the Keller farm is the big one. 600 acres, creek frontage. Worth $15 to developers. Silas. Diane's asking questions about the trust structure. Silas. She's emotional, thinks I love her. I can work with that. The crowd went silent. Diane made a sound, small, broken. Grant began an affair with my wife 8 months ago, I said. My voice didn't shake. 40 years of emergency calls had taught me to stay calm when everything burned. He used that relationship to gain access to estate documents, to manipulate my wife into believing a land sale was necessary to cover medical expenses. I pulled out the forensic report. The estate transfer documents require my father-in-law's signature. Those documents are dated March 3rd, but Dutch Erickson had a stroke on March 5th before any lawyer visited him. A forensic handwriting analyst has confirmed with 97% certainty that Dutch's signature was forged. Silas lunged to his feet. You can't prove Actually, Boone said, we can. The lawyer who filed those documents, Mr. Garvey, has already given a statement to investigators. He admits you provided the signed documents to him, said you assured him they were legitimate. He's lying. We also have your text messages discussing the forgery, I said, and testimony from your wife, Tessa Grant, who witnessed you practicing Dutch's signature in your home office. Silas's face went from red to white. Sheriff Kowalski stood. Mr. Grant, I think we need to have a conversation. Downtown. I want my lawyer. That's your right. Kowalski gestured to his deputy who'd been standing near the back. But you're coming with us now. The crowd parted as Kowalski and his deputy escorted Silas toward a patrol car. Silas looked back once, at Diane. She stared at the ground. The reporter's camera flashed. McGrath stepped forward, uncertain. Warren, Should we? One more thing, I said. I turned to Diane. She sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. My wife was used in this scheme, I said. Grant accessed farmer financial records using her agricultural consultant credentials. He did this without her knowledge or consent. Text messages prove he referred to her as a means to an end. She believed she was helping her parents. She believed she was loved. She was wrong on both counts. Diane's shoulders shook. She made mistakes, I continued. She betrayed our marriage. She lied to me, to her parents, to herself. But she's also a victim of Silas Grant's conspiracy. I'm not excusing her choices. I'm just telling you the whole truth. Pastor Emile stood, walked to Diane, sat beside her, put his arm around her shoulders. I looked out at the crowd, 70 faces. People I'd known for decades, people I'd helped, who'd helped me. This community shows up for each other, I said. We show up when houses burn, when crops fail, when people make mistakes and need a path back. I paused. But we also show up for truth, even when it's ugly, even when it costs us. I pulled the bell rope one more time. The sound rang clear and final. Thank you for coming, I said, and thank you for 40 years of letting me serve you. I stepped down, walked toward my truck. Behind me, voices rose. Questions, shock, the chaos of truth finally spoken. Diane appeared beside me before I reached the parking lot. Her face was destroyed, makeup running, eyes swollen. Warren, I swear, I didn't know about the loans, about the fraud. I thought, she choked, I thought he loved me. I know. Can you ever? She stopped. No, that's not fair to ask. We stood in the spring afternoon. Warm breeze carried the smell of fresh-cut grass, apple blossoms from the tree line. I forgive you, I said. Her breath caught. You do? I do, but I can't trust you. And without trust, there's nothing left. I pulled an envelope from my jacket. Divorce papers. Already filed. You're not contesting, are you? She took the envelope with shaking hands. No. Your parents are transferring the farm to our daughter. You're not in the will anymore. Nora called me this morning. Fresh tears. I understand. You should go, I said gently. Go figure out who you are without him, without me, without anyone telling you who you're supposed to be. She nodded, walked to her car, drove away. I stood alone in the parking lot. The brass bell gleamed on its post, silent now. Behind me, I heard Boone's voice explaining something to the town council, heard McGrath promising the reporter a statement, heard the machinery of justice beginning to turn. The robins sang from the station's roof. Spring sounds, beginning sounds. I climbed into my truck and went home. The next week passed in a blur of phone calls and paperwork. Sheriff's Department, county prosecutor, banking regulators. Silas Grant was charged with fraud, forgery, identity theft, and conspiracy. His assets were frozen. The 12 families he'd defrauded were filing a class action lawsuit. Garvey, the estate lawyer, lost his license. Turned out he'd been on Silas's payroll for years, helping structure the fraudulent deals. Diane moved out on a Tuesday. I helped her load boxes into a U-Haul. We didn't talk much. What was left to say? She was staying with her sister in Duluth, looking for a new teaching job. The school board had put her on administrative leave pending investigation. Using her credentials in a fraud scheme, even unknowingly, had consequences. I'm sorry, she said when the last box was loaded. For everything. I know you are. She climbed into the truck, paused with the door open. You were a good husband, Warren. I hope you know that. This wasn't about you. It was about me. About being scared of getting old, of becoming invisible. She wiped her eyes. I made terrible choices. But you did everything right. Not everything. I should have paid more attention. Should have seen you hurting. That's kind of you to say, but we both know the truth. She closed the door. Started the engine. I watched her drive away until the U-Haul disappeared around the bend. Dutch came home from the hospital on April 25th. The stroke had left him weakened, his left side mostly useless, but his mind was sharp. Nora set him up in the first-floor bedroom of their farmhouse, the one with the window overlooking the fields. I visited on a Saturday, brought that tobacco blend he liked. We sat together in comfortable silence, watching spring green up the land. You saved it, he said finally. His speech was better now, therapy helping. The farm, you saved it. Just did what was right. But more than that. His good hand gripped mine. You stood up when it cost you everything, your marriage, Your reputation, for a while anyway. That takes a kind of courage most men don't have. Through the window, I could see Nora in her garden, planting tomatoes, life continuing. Emma's flying in next week, Dutch said. Bringing your grandson. Nora wants to show them the place. Start teaching the boy about the land. He smiled, lopsided but genuine. Your daughter's a good woman. Raised her right? Diane raised her too. True enough, people are complicated, even the ones who hurt us. He shifted in his chair. You know, Diane called yesterday, asked if she could visit, apologized to her mother, to me. What did you say? Said give it time. Said wounds this deep need space before they can heal. He looked at me. But I didn't say never. Maybe that makes me soft, makes you human. May 3rd. I stood in the farmhouse kitchen as dawn broke. Coffee brewing, window open. The first real warmth of spring came through, carrying the smell of wet earth and apple blossoms. No diesel exhaust, no rosewater perfume, no lies. Just coffee and morning and the sound of birds claiming territory in the maples. I carried my cup outside, walked the fence line to the south pasture where I'd proposed to Diane 42 years ago. The grass was knee-high now, lush with spring rain. In my truck bed, an apple tree sapling, Honey Crisp. I'd bought it last week, couldn't say exactly why. Maybe because Dutch and Nora had always loved Honey Crisps. Maybe because planting something felt like the right way to mark an ending, or a beginning. I dug the hole with a post-hole digger, the familiar weight and rhythm grounding me, set the sapling carefully, packed soil around its roots. The earth was warm now, alive with worms and beetles and all the invisible work of spring. A car pulled into my driveway, Emma's rental. She climbed out, and behind her, my grandson Levi tumbled free, 5 years old, all energy and questions. Grandpa! He ran toward me across the grass. I knelt, caught him in a hug. He smelled like juice boxes and sunshine. Emma walked up more slowly, put her hand on my shoulder. Hey, Dad, you doing okay? Getting there. Grandpa, what's that? Levi pointed at the sapling. That's an apple tree. Someday, when you're bigger, it'll give you apples. Will you be here when I'm bigger? I plan to be. Emma squeezed my shoulder. We're staying through next week. Thought maybe we could help with spring planting. Levi wants to learn about the farm. This is my farm? Levi asked. Someday, buddy. Someday it'll be yours. He studied the sapling with serious eyes, then looked up at me. I'll take good care of it, Grandpa. Promise. I know you will. And the three of us stood there in the south pasture. 3 generations. The farmhouse behind us, the land stretching out in every direction, the apple tree sapling between us like a promise made to the future. Somewhere in the distance, the brass fire bell sat silent in the station. Its work done. Its 40 years of service complete. But here, in this field, with my daughter and grandson beside me and warm soil under my boots, I understood something I hadn't before. Some legacies are worth fighting for, even when it costs you everything else. And sometimes, what grows from the ashes is stronger than what burned. That evening, after Emma and Levi left for their hotel, I sat on the porch with my coffee gone cold. The sun set slow and golden, painting the fields copper and amber. Daffodils lined the driveway. Diane had planted them years ago, and they came back faithful every spring whether she was here or not. I thought about Pastor Emil's sermon on forgiveness, about Clara's accusations in the church parking lot, about the town's whispers that had turned from judgment to something softer after the truth came out. Forgiveness wasn't what I thought it was. Wasn't forgetting, wasn't pretending the wound never happened. It was just deciding the wound wouldn't define the rest of my life. Diane had called yesterday, left a voicemail, said she'd started therapy, said she was learning to be alone, to sit with herself without running toward the first person who made her feel young again. Said she understood if I never wanted to speak to her, but she hoped someday we could be civil for Emma's sake, for Levi's. I hadn't called back yet. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. Either way, I was okay. A cardinal landed on the porch railing, bright red against weathered wood. It cocked its head, studied me with one black eye, then sang, clear and strong and utterly itself. The apple tree would grow, Levi would learn the land. Dutch and Nora would watch their legacy continue in good hands. The 12 families Silas had destroyed would get some justice, some restitution, some measure of peace. And me? I'd ring the bell again when the town needed it. I'd show up for emergencies. I'd plant trees and tend what mattered and teach my grandson that some things, honor, truth, the good soil under your feet, were worth any price. The cardinal sang once more, then lifted into the evening sky. I watched it go, then stood and walked inside. Tomorrow I'd start again.